And that's how we find our answer.
Miss Cheerily writes down the answer on the board with chalk dust covering her muzzle. It's strange. You once tried writing with a pencil in your mouth in hopes of fitting in with the other classmates, but it never worked out that well. Your hands were much more useful. How a pony could keep a piece of chalk in her mouth without gagging from the dust was a wonder that would never be explained in this lifetime. You find yourself looking up at the clock in the back of the room, making sure not to get caught by Cheerily. She loved to pick on the students who were impatient with the school day.
Maybe you know the answer to the next question, Anonymous.
Crap, busted. You slowly turn back to the front of the class and look at the displeased pony, and crack a cheesy smile.
Can you repeat the question again, Miss Cheerily? I had to crack my neck to stop the stiffness.
You turn your head in all different directions to fake a cracking in hopes of tricking the teacher. Cheerily shoots you a glare so hot it could melt ice. She clearly isn't falling for it.
If sine A equals 1/2 and cosine A is less than 0, then A equals what?
A chill runs down your spine. You haven't got a clue on what she's talking about. Sweat begins to beat on your forehead as you feel all the stares from your peers land on you.
150 degrees.
You already know who it is letting out that subtle whisper. Applebloom hides behind her textbook, a smirk coursing her lips. Now that you have the answer, your confidence peaks.
150 degrees.
You proudly brandish your chest like a champion gladiator. Applebloom, along with a select few fillies and colts, hold back their giggles as Cheerily's glare grows hotter.
Very well done. Now, come to the front of the room and show how you got the answer to the rest of the class.
Your testicles retract back into your pelvis. Quickly, you glance at Applebloom in hopes of getting another round of help. Her devastated expression tells you that she's just as stumped as you are. Slowly, you leave the safety of your desk and make your way to the front of the room. Cheerily gives you a piece of chalk covered in spit. You want to throw it aside, but something tells you that would be taken as a disrespectful gesture. With a very hesitant hand, you begin doodling on the board while surrounding your body over it to hide its contents away from everyone. The rest of the class tries its best to see what you could be writing, but immediately stop as Cheerily's gaze comes over them. The last thing they want is to be the next victim. After what feels like an eternity, you glance over your shoulder and look up at the clock once more. Only a minute until the final bell. Cheerily taps her hoof against the floor impatiently.
Well, Anon, you came up with the answer rather quickly. It shouldn't take this long to write it down.
It's time. The moment of truth. You back away from the board and step aside to allow the rest of the class access. A few of the onlookers gasp and chuckle as Cheerily's eyes widen. Across the board reads, Miss Cheerily has an ugly flank.
And that's how I found my answer.
You say with a sense of entitlement. The bell rings, but no one moves from their seats. Your legs freeze in place, not moving no matter what you do. Cheerily, with a blank expression, turns to the class.
Class, you may head home now. Don't forget, your projects are due tomorrow. Anon, you stay behind. You too, Applebloom.
Your feet finally decide to move, but instead of making their way towards the door, you find yourself moving towards the bubblegum-colored teacher.
Wait, Applebloom didn't do anything wrong. Why is she in trouble?
Cheerily ignores you and repeats her statement.
Applebloom, make sure not to leave.
Without objection, Applebloom stops packing her things and sits back in her seat. Cheerily turns back to you. This blank, deadpan face of hers. You've never seen her do it before. It's frightening.
Take your seat, Anon.
You don't even hesitate. Sulking back to your desk, you take a seat, but don't dare to look up from it. Cheerily drags a stool between Applebloom and yourself and sits down.
Anon.
Your heart skips a beat. Getting yelled at was a normal thing for you, but this monotonous tone was terrifying. You have no idea what she's going to do next. Your eyes don't stray from your hands on the desk.
Anon, look at me.
Slowly, your eyes pry from your hands to your teacher's face. Disappointment covers it. She lets out a disheartened sigh and shakes her head.
I'm not angry with you two. I'm disappointed.
You glance over to see Applebloom look down at her desk. You're pretty sure you saw her lip quiver as well. Your gaze returns to Cheerily.
Anon, you've been behind in your studies. I know that you don't like studying, but think about your future. Without proper education, you're not going to go very far.
Your eyes resume their position on your hands as your teacher continues.
As for you, Applebloom...
Her tone has a fair bit of bitterness behind it, almost as if she'd never expect to do this in a million years.
You can't give him the answers to everything. I know you understand the material, but giving him a shortcut like that isn't going to help him. It's just going to hurt him.
Applebloom nods her head, signaling an understanding. The teacher steps down from her seat and lets out one last disappointed sigh.
I'm not going to punish you two, but if I have to sit down with you both again, you can be sure both your guardians will be here as well.
Both you and Applebloom nod, simultaneously muttering an apology. Cheerily returns to her desk as you quickly pack up your stuff and head outside. The weather is so nice today. How could anyone want to stay indoors? Applebloom follows you out into the warm, sunlit surrounding, making sure to keep up alongside you. It's not too long before the other Cutie Mark Crusaders regroup with their member.
What you did in there was pretty brave, Anon. You got some guts standing up for Applebloom in there.
She nudges you in the side with a hoof, making you wince a bit. You hold back the pain, of course. The last thing you wanted was to look like a wimp to a bunch of girls. Applebloom blushes and shakes her head in embarrassment. Before she can even say anything, you cut in.
Yeah, well, if I wasn't so stupid, Applebloom wouldn't have gotten in trouble at all.
You're not stupid, Anon.
Her eyes immediately drop back to the ground as Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo exchange smirks and return their attention back to you. They always have a tendency of doing that, and you don't know why. It makes you feel so uncomfortable at times.
Applebloom is right, Nani.
Your heart skips a beat from the sound of that voice. Standing right behind you are your two guardians, Flitter and Cloud Chaser, wearing almost sinister grins. You can feel the blood rush to your cheeks from embarrassment as Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle's snickers increase in volume. Even Applebloom cracks a slight smile at the mention of the nickname.
Come on! I told you guys to stop calling me that!
Flitter nuzzles your cheek, letting out a quiet squee.
But Nani's such a cute name. Why don't you like it?
Yeah. Why don't you like it, Nani?
For the same reason you don't like being called chicken.
Scootaloo averts her eyes and scratches her foreleg nervously. Sweetie Belle's smirk quickly fades away, probably because she knows the name Diamond Tiara calls her will be used. You don't like to be mean-spirited to anyone, but that doesn't mean you won't defend yourself when you need to.
Nani, what have we said about using mean names before?
That voice gives you goosebumps when she gets serious. Turning to Cloud Chaser, you mutter.
Not to use them.
She gives you one last scowl before cracking a wide grin.
Good. Now what do you guys have planned for today?
I was thinking about going down to the lake and skipping some stones, or maybe exploring Whitetail Woods again.
A hoof taps your side, trying to get your attention. Applebloom gives you a stern look.
Anon, we have our project due tomorrow.
Flitter and Cloud Chaser both raise an eyebrow, mimicking Applebloom's look.
Oh, do you? Why haven't we heard anything about this project?
If there was anything you didn't want now, it was this. You try your best to come up with an excuse, but before you can say another word, Applebloom joins in.
If you want, Anon, I can help you with your project.
Her cheeks turn a deep, rosy red. Flitter and Cloud Chaser both exchange giggles. You'd recognize those giggles anywhere. They always broke into one of those fits when they talked about boys like Thunderlane or Soren. They couldn't possibly think.
I don't know. I kind of wanted to...
Cloud Chaser breaks off from her chortle charade and stares you down. Cloud Chaser is not the kind of mare you would mess with. Last time you disobeyed her, she used you as a makeup project and threatened to send you to school like that if you chose to disobey her ever again. You glance over at Applebloom, who hangs her head in defeat, and quickly catch on to what Cloud Chaser is hinting.
On second thought, that sounds like a good idea.
Applebloom's head perks up instantaneously, a huge smile plastered on her face. Your two guardians resume their giggles as you let out a defeated sigh. It seems that no matter where you go, there will always be women, or mares, to bring you down. Even as you make your way to Sweet Apple Acres, you take notice of how few stallions there are. Out of the 50 ponies you see along the way, you count only 5 stallions.
Y'all right, Anon?
Shaking your head, you bring yourself back down to earth.
Yeah, I was just noticing how the amount of mares in this world outweighs the stallions.
Applebloom cocks an eyebrow in confusion. It's only expected. She's used to only a small amount of stallions in her town.
I counted 50 ponies, and only 5 of them were stallions. That means, on average, there's 10 mares to 1 stallion. The number isn't entirely accurate, though, being only a small sample. The number would change according to the environment, birth and death rate, breeding times, and other aspects as well.
The words just seem to flow right off the tip of your tongue without realizing it. Applebloom's eyes widen in surprise.
Anon, that's what we learned in statistics last week.
So?
So why did you fail the test if you knew the material all along?
You stop your stride and think about it for a moment.
Dunno. Guess I never really had a reason to use it before. My mind usually goes blank when I take a test.
You shrug it off and resume your walk.
Does it really matter?
In a way, yes.
Applebloom comes to a halt as you both approach a very decorative trellis. This is your first time at Sweet Apple Acres, and you're kind of glad you came along. Orchards spread far across the hills, blooming with plump, luscious apples. The place is a marvel to see.
It sure is something, ain't it?
An all too familiar voice graces your ears. Applejack dumps a basket filled with fresh, crisp apples into a cart, before making her way to greet you and Apple Bloom.
It sure is, Miss Applejack.
A frown forms on the mayor's face.
Oh, no, I told you not to call me Miss. Just Applejack is fine.
Her signature smile comes back as she ruffles your hair. You always liked Applejack. Though she's a serious pony, she never looks down on you like the rest of the mares and stallions in town. You're pretty much her equal and vice versa.
So what brings you to this neck of the woods?
She asks, keeping a keen eye on her little sister.
Andy needs help with his project, so I offered to help him out.
She pipes with a cheeky grin. Applejack lets out a hearty chuckle. You can't tell why, but something about that laugh makes you nervous.
I see.
Applejack coos, the smile on her face growing wider still.
Well, make sure to introduce your friend here to Granny Smith and Big Macintosh. You know how upset they get if they don't get to meet your friends.
You turn to Apple Bloom, trying to figure out what Applejack means by emphasizing the word friends. The filly just shrugs and starts leading you to the large home down the dirt road.
What was that all about?
Apple Bloom completely avoids eye contact with you, but you can see her face is completely red.
Nothing.
Why is everyone acting so strange when you're with Apple Bloom? When you're in class, she's just another friend to you when it comes to your classmates. But whenever there's an older pony involved, they always act strange. Almost as if they think you're both It finally clicks. Do they think that Apple Bloom likes you? There's no way that could be true. You two are just friends. But it would explain why Apple Bloom always blushes at the slightest mention of being more than friends. Or it could be because she doesn't see you like that, and it makes her embarrassed to even think about it. You look over to Apple Bloom, who still refuses to meet your gaze, and nod. Yeah. That's the only logical explanation. You hold open the front door to the filly, who mutters a small,
Thank you.
before quickly making her way inside. The house's interior is nothing like its exterior. Outside, the paint is thin and cracking, giving off an old, falling-apart feel to it. But inside, it's well-furnished and cozy. It feels like a home away from home.
Well. Is this the strappy youngster y'all is going on about, Apple Bloom?
An elderly mare sits at the counter, a bowl and freshly sliced apples laid across it.
Granny!
Apple Bloom's face flushes, anger clear in her eyes. You can't help but giggle along with the mare as you extend a hand out for a shake.
My name is Anonymous, ma'am. You must be Apple Bloom's other sister.
Oh, this one's a keeper.
Granny Smith jests, nudging the filly with her hoof.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, son, but I'm her granny.
You let out a hearty laugh as Apple Bloom scoffs at her granny's joke and pushes you out of the kitchen.
Now don't you two be doing anything questionable up there, you hear?
Granny shouts as you're unwillingly dragged to Apple Bloom's room. Looking around, it seems like a pretty stereotypical room for a girl. A vanity with a large mirror, a wardrobe most likely packed with clothes, and a frilly full-size bed with matching drapes sit spread across the room. It smells, obviously, of apples, but also a hint of cinnamon as well.
So what are you gonna do for your project?
You immediately plop down on the bed and sprawl out.
I don't even know what the assignment is.
Apple Bloom scoffs and pulls out her planner from her saddlebag. After a quick flick of her hoof, she flips to the necessary page.
We have to write a story about a special time in our life and be as creative as possible.
There are a couple of special things that have happened to you over the years. Showing up in Equestria, moving in with Cloud Chaser and Flitter. But there was one thing that was even more special to you. Jumping down from the bedside, you dig into your backpack and grab a notebook and a pencil. Jotting every small detail, you begin filling up page after page, perking Apple Bloom's interest. The filly leans forward, trying to sneak a peek at your notes. You wrench the notebook away, not wanting her to see it.
This is something I don't want you to hear until we're in class tomorrow. No one knows, but this memory was life-changing for me.
Apple Bloom, a little taken aback, stares at you in confusion, but respects your wish. She continues to watch as you lay into the notebook, not showing the pages nor the pencil any sign of letting up.
And I'm supposed to be helping you with this, remember?
You roll your eyes.
Do you have any poster board and glue then? I could make a little banner for my story.
Apple Bloom puts a hoof to her chin before looking under the bed.
I got some poster board under here somewhere.
As she digs around, you hear metal, glass, and other objects clanging against one another.
The glue should be in the top drawer of my vanity.
Sure enough, it's in there. As you grab the squeezable bottle, it starts to slip from your hands. A grease-like substance covers the container.
Apple Bloom? Why is this bottle all greasy?
Long story short, you
Skulu dropped down grilled cheese sandwich one day, and I haven't been able to get the darn grease off since.
The thing is really hard to handle. Every few seconds or so, you find yourself trying your hardest not to let it fall to the ground. The last thing you wanted to do was get glue all over your host's floor. Apple Bloom finally returns from her venture under the bed with a poster in her mouth.
What do you have planned, Dylan?
Before you can say a word, the bottle slips from your grasp, rocketing into the air. You juggle it everywhere, unable to maintain a grip on it. As it reaches your waistline, you grab it with both hands. You grab too hard, however. In the span of a second, the bottle emits a jet of white liquid all over Apple Bloom's face. The filly didn't even see it coming. Before she can even react, it gets in her eyes and mane. In the spur of the moment, the bottle jets out of your hands and under the bed.
What are you doing to my sister?
You freeze for a moment, not knowing who the new, deep, masculine voice belongs to. Slowly, you turn your head to notice a large red stallion glaring directly at you. He makes his way towards you, alternating stares between you and Apple Bloom. The look in his eyes, it screams murder. You don't know why, but your brain doesn't work properly anymore. The last thing you want to do is get in trouble for getting glue everywhere. So you do the first thing that comes to mind. Snatch up your notebook and run. You don't even look back. With every ounce of strength in your body, you hightail it down the stairs, sprint out the front door, and dart straight for home. Before you can get to your room and hide, Flitter grabs your arm.
Whoa there, Nani! What happened?
It was all over the place. In her hair, some got in her eyes. And then Big Mac walked in, and I thought he was gonna kill me.
The guffaws of your two sisters do nothing to soothe your mind about the new enemy you're certain you've made.